Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and checking it out. I'm going to do a little talk right now on the Shadow Priest and PvP. We're in 7.2, about to head to 7.2.5. So I know there are some changes coming up, but I think a lot of what you're going to see now is just a better balancing of the classes. We've seen so much, and I'm gonna tell you, it's like I had the talent spec set up right and it just wasn't procking properly at the beginning of the expansion, and it has to do with the artifact and gaining strength and these abilities, getting 20% buffs off the artifact, and it's just nonsense. um I also wanted kind of go after icy veins right now, and some of the sites, every expansion that I've gone into and I've stared at icy veins, or and looked at them for stat priorities and stuff, I'm like, what the heck are they doing? Because I've spent a lot of time optimizing my priest, and going back and forth, and typically what it's taking me is it's taking me, in each expansion, 3 to 4 months, where I'll keep my mouth shut before I come out of my mouth with something a little more confident. In this expansion, here we are, we're 8 months in, and I'm pretty confident that there are three different ways that you can PvP with a Shadow Priest, and it's really all situational. Um, and I really don't think Surrender to Madness really has any viability in regards to the battlegrounds. We're strictly talking battlegrounds here because I'm not going to speak on arenas because I don't know arenas. Um, and I definitely find that there's definitively different things. You're in a completely different environment. A 2v2 or a 3v3 or a 5v5 environment is completely different than a 10v10 environment, and what you're susceptible to. And being a glass cannon, and you just have to look at a lot of things that way. Um, and why I'm picking the talents that I am. So one of the ways to set it up is to set it up with Void Ray and Sandland. Now what this is you're trying to maximize your Mind Flay and your Vampiric Touch. The Mind Flay will help you with the Mind Seer with the AoE. Um, when you're trying to when you're just in there with a pack and all you can do is get up a Shadow Word Pain because there's so much going on and there might be potential lag. Hopefully not. Um, if you really are running into lag during these clashing moments, turn down your video settings. Like me, like if you see me right now, like I have a great video card. I'm running 12 gigs of RAM here. I really don't need to be looking at a cloudy background and a cloudy dollar on, but I am because I don't want to damage my video card. I'm not trying to overwork it. In the morning, I'll turn it up to try to loosen it up a little bit, and that's it. And then I turn it right back down, and I typically run it around 70 to 100 frames a second, um, and that's enough for me. And I don't run into major lag during the clash outs, and that's key. Because if you start lagging during the clash in like Eye of the Storm, that's it. Your whole team's going down. And if you think that one person doesn't matter, if you think your one survivability doesn't matter, it does. Because ultimately you could be out there, even if you're doing no DPS, CCing people and keeping melee off your healers so that your healers can actually do their job. So when it comes to PvP, you can start talking about, do you get on the healers first? Do you get on the DPS first? Um, I think that's also situational. So like if you're at like a base, let's stick with Eye of the Storm. So if you're at the base in Eye of the Storm and you're fighting like a 3-on-4 or something like that, then yeah, it might benefit you to go on the healer. But if you're at a 15 versus 15 clash in the center of Eye of the Storm, let's say no 13 on 13 because two people went to the side bases and so on and so forth. Um, your best bet is to stay on the DPS that's in front. Just based on how quickly we're melting targets right now, healers can't keep up. And you say yes they can, but no. With 13, typically you'll have three healers, maybe a tank on your team. So there's four people who are out of the loop. Hopefully you got your tank on there who's trying to clash some heals and he's up in there. But so two teams are clashing. Melee comes in and is trying to one disrupt your range, and break through range and find a target that they can rip through. So if someone's not trying to stop melee, um, you guys are vulnerable. I don't care if you guys want to just go ahead and say, yeah, we're getting on the healers, or yeah, we're getting on the DPS. If you leave their melee to just rip up whoever, then you have no prevention. Whether they choose to go for a healer or they choose to go for a DPS class. If they choose to go for a DPS class, you should just know that they're gonna win. They don't need to go for the healer. The DPS is what's killing them. If they're on the DPS, if they're on a Shadow Priest, per se, he's not doing his damage. And if he was on top, he's now on the bottom. So Shadow Priest is like that class, and I've always looked at it that way. Like, if you guys don't protect him, it's not going to happen. But if you do, you'll be rewarded greatly. you know, um, so what I found is, if you're running a dot, or you want to try to run down their team with dots, you're going to try to drain them down. Sandlin and Void Ray are really good, but I was very disappointed when I started to see the amount of damage that Vampiric Touch was doing, because Vampiric Touch is a castable. I don't want to start with a castable, and that upset me for the longest, because in PvP, a row comes up and interrupts you. Everything's done. It's all done right then and there. So PvP was ruined in my eyes when I started to see that. And I ignored it. I said, I am not going for Sandland. I'm not going for Void Ray. And I wanted to change my talents a different way. So the way I wanted to set up was, I wanted to set up with Reaper of Souls so that I could be a better killer. Um, just basically allowing me to use Shadow or Death at a higher level, which allows me to ramp up my Void. I'm sorry, my power higher there, and and then Shadowy Insight. I went with so that I could just use Shadow Word Pain all the time, and it was working. You use Shadow Word Pain and you put it up, and you get it up there on like 3 to 4 targets, and all of a sudden you're gonna find out that you have these mind blasts that are amazing, and they're so great when it comes to specific situations where like a warrior will charge you. So for like a while I started to go with the Shadow Crash so that I could get some nice damage out on a warrior when I saw him potentially coming near me, because I knew that the minute that he charged me and pummeled and everything, that we were going to get ripped up. And I find this happening to a lot of priests, because I'm watching what's happening to other Shadow Priests with the Sandlin and the Void Ray. And like I said, this is what Icy Veins is suggesting. This is what every site is suggesting, because once they jump on board, they're all on board, and they're all just copying each other. And I have to say, you have to think about progression. It's like you think about Thoughtbot, you think about Wowhead, and you think about the spreading of words, and you think about Curse Voice and how it got debunked by Discord, because just basically because people can leave channels open and moderate better. And it's also about what Blizzard wants to push. I know that based on the way that I've experienced World of Warcraft, that Blizzard is very much involved in the guilds right in front of your face. Um, and with that said, um, you know their propaganda is reigning supreme every expansion. It's been tried and proven. So they're here debunking you, getting in your way, making suggestions on sites that help benefit them and help benefit potentially their workers. So you got workers who will work for Blizzard, and then they'll work on these side projects, add-ons, fan sites, so on and so forth. And now you're enabled as a player to do this as well. Blizzard won't stop you, but you're not gonna be able to compete with someone who's working for Blizzard and doing development, being pushed by Blizzard and getting inside information from Blizzard. Um, but that's what's happening. So you have people who are developers that are working on this stuff as side projects. So they've got inside information. But if you think about it, Vampiric Touch is a castable. That is what Icy Vein suggests. So that right there just goes to show you that they just jump on board. How can one person, how can one website contain 39, specs. If you've got like 12 different classes and each one has 3. Well, I know everyone doesn't have 3, so it's not technically 36. So don't hold me to my numbers. But you're gonna tell me Icy Veins is on top of 36 specs in regards to PvE and PvP? Nope. They walk into these battlegrounds, and they see what's going on. They can armory players, they can copy down talents, then they can go and they can try it for a day, and then they'll go ahead and make their recommendations. They might even try it for a week. That doesn't mean they know what they're doing. Um, and this video ultimately proves it. I want to take the time to show you that they can't be on top of 36 different things, especially in PvP and PvE, because then that takes like 70. But they have these 70 categories on lockdown, and everyone, as far as a fan, is going to these sites and getting their suggestions from them, and then it creates bad PvP and just basically a copy and paste play style where people are coming out, with just high DPS, and high DPS is not PvP. But yet, that's what everyone thinks it is right now. And as the tides turn, what happens is that high DPS reigns supreme in the beginning, and all of a sudden talent comes out and shuts all of that down. And people start to realize what these high DPSers are doing, and the interrupts come in, and people start shutting them down, and all of a sudden they feel that their class has been broken for the rest of the expansion, and then they log out. And this is that's the poison right there. I really encourage everyone to try to learn your class and your spec and keep an open mind to what you know, and believe that Blizzard's put something out there, because I was lost in a web of of shadow, basically. So what's happening, I in regards to this Foray and the Sandland, what you want to do is you want to completely eliminate that. Unless you're playing with a really good group, this is going to be your best DPS, and that's a fact. But you want to stay away from this mainly in PvE because, like I said, you're creating mind flays and vampiric touches that are ultimately going to get interrupted. And why leave yourself susceptible to an interrupt when you can run around and bounce around and get the same amount of DPS out and find out that its burst is so much more situational for what you want. Um, and like I said, no one's suggesting this. So, Shadowy Insight, um, for your Shadow Word Pain to proc additional Mind Blast, and then you want to go ahead and change this to Reaper of Souls. Now the Shadow Crash is really nice damage, and you might find that you might be playing with a real smash and clash team. Like you might have 2 mages that run in and start instantly banging out like 700,000 DPS. Now you're like, what am I talking about? 700,000 in Battlegrounds? Yeah, like it really exists. When you get up to these high-end teams in Raid Battlegrounds, don't expect to not see a mage come and dump 700,000 DPS onto a team. And he'll run it consistently for, a good 20-25 seconds. And then DKs, you've got Unholy's doing a tremendous amount of damage right now, but people, haven't seen a lot of it yet. Um, but be prepared. These classes are out there doing tremendous DPS. Um, so Shadow Crash might be a way that you want to go for your team because they're protecting you really well, and you want to come in and just instantly, bam! Like when a team, like all of a sudden you're facing up against 10 people and you find that they're all clustered together. But like I said, it's all situational. If you go ahead and choose Shadow Crash and you launch that Shadow Crash at them and everyone scatters, think about the amount of time you just lost there. So that's why I'm suggesting to stay away from it and just try to ramp up the best you can. And you got a lot of people who are like, oh my god, haste is so amazing. And it is. Haste will increase your DPS a tremendous amount, and it increases insanity regeneration a tremendous amount. But what happens when a guy's running away from you and he gets out of range, and you've worked so hard on him and you got so close? Let me tell you, a mind bender is amazing to use because you're generating insanity um, along the way. Um, and you're doing damage. You know, that insanity and being able to get people out of range has been huge to me. The big downfall of a mind bender, I feel, is that you know, once you launch him out in combat, if someone takes off on you, that mind bender's chasing him, and you know, you're stuck in combat, and you know, you're not gonna be able to mount up. So typically when you're chasing after a target, you're not going to drop mindbender initially. You know, you're going to hold on to it for a little while. um, so that's kind of the thought process that I run with. And if you guys see me, you know, I'm really successful. You know, there's certain games I'm getting pounded out by a pre-made, but I run alone. But when I run into, you know, good groups where all of a sudden everything's matched up properly with like three heals, you know, and a tank and everything, you know, my class and me, I start to really do quite well. And you know, I can fend for myself in regards to the pugs pretty well, um, with my spec as well. So ultimately, if you come and look here, you know, last word I found is really cool because you can get some extra silences. So if you find yourself that you're constantly going after healers, or you know, your rated battleground team is like, look, you're gonna be on the healers, you might want to go that way. But the Siphene is on a great cooldown and it does nice DPS and it really helps you ramp up initially, um, in situational. So like I can put the Siphene down instead of my Mind Flay and just kind of um, potentially apply a shield on myself, potentially use the Mind Bomb to stun, um, you know, do other stuff that flows better with the PvP. So So you know, here you see me set up 1 3 2 2 3 1. Um, let's talk about number one. I found the Gladiator's medallion is the best way to go. I know that you can get, you know, better cooldown off of the adaptation. Adaptation is put here, I think, to help rogues. I'm dead serious because this situation will allow you to get sap capped on. Um, and then relentless to reduce crowd control duration can be nice, but like I said, you know, this isn't something that I haven't really tried this out too well to see if, you know, if you can avoid sap caps due to this. But I know that I can in regards to my medallion, so I continue to always play it the way that I do. Then in regards to the haste and the damage increase here, so the damage increase is if you stay out of combat, which, you know, typically if you're going onto a heavy rated battleground, you know, you're running into people dotting and there's all types of damage being thrown out, so you're not going to be able to get that. The 6% haste is amazing, but I found that you're getting your most damage by allowing your crits to be increased on targets above 80% health. This is what's going to help you um, cut through a team. You know, like when you find that, you know, you got two healers up on a DPS and you guys are trying to get through that DPS, this is what's going to help start to break him down, to the point where you know, you could potentially silence a healer and then get back on him. But a lot of that swapping is really aggravating, you know, and as a Shadow Priest, do your best to commit to a target and try to line up the best target initially. You know, I found a lot of times I'm beating myself up in the graveyard, like, you know, should have won on this guy first, should have won on that guy first. And it's a lot of situational, and you just have to really know what could potentially happen to you. Um, so Pure Shadow is amazing. That extra bit on the dispersion, you know, really keeps you up, and you know, having the insanity keep going. So like, you know, you just popped your void torrent and you know, you're standing there and all of a sudden you got pummeled and stunned a whole bunch, and you know, you pop dispersion. When you come back up, you're like, you know, a hard hitting machine. So it really works out really well there. Void eruption on an instant cast is amazing. So you know, you put a whole bunch of dots on a bunch of targets. Once you pop the void eruption, you're gonna hit everyone that you have Shadow Word Pain on for an instant amount of damage. So right before you pop your eruption, you definitely want to have Shadow Word Pain up on as many targets as possible. So that falls back into the nice talent with the shadowy insight there. So as you can see, it starts to become, you know, more fluid this way, and things start to stack on top of each other. Edge of Insanity might be really nice for going the opposite way, and just sitting there with Sandlin, you know, in And using vampiric touch in your mind flays, you can get up some really nice damage that way. But I found that a lot of this, in regards to damage, is really consistent. It's pretty good. Um, so then, um, having vampiric touch up on two more targets grants insanity. It's a lot of casting. It's really gonna mess you up. I mean, I definitely understand that it'll increase your healing, and that's nice survivability. Um, but it's a lot of casting, and it's really situational. And once we start saying the word situational, I just, I feel that that's something that people constantly need to be saying themselves in battlegrounds. So, Psychic Link, Mind Blast, and Void will now deal 30% of their damage to all targets afflicted with your Shadow or Pain. So now, every time that you have your Shadow or Pain up on all these targets, so you're proccing extra instant Mind Blast, and then you're throwing out that Mind Blast, and that Mind Blast is hitting multiple targets, and Mind Blast increases your I'm sorry. Let's get it right. Of course, they're not gonna say it for me here. But your insanity, there it is. So it's increasing your insanity a ton. Like I said, the Mind Band is increasing your insanity a ton. Um, and then you're using Reaper of Souls when your target's above 35% health to get two huge amounts of insanity there by using that ability. So you just ramp up and then make sure you have the Shadow Word Pain, and then you do your Void Eruption. You're still getting a nice one, and then the Void Bolt, and then you can actually go into a Torrent if necessary. I tend to be saving my Torrent right now for healers and healers only. Um, I don't find that it's really affecting my rotation one way or another. If you're on a tank, you might want to also use your Torrent there. But otherwise, I'm saving it. So, yeah, we talked about Siphon, we talked about Psychic Link, we talked about why we're using the instant on the Eruption, we talked about Dispersion, we've talked about the extra crits. So, Legacy of the Void, I just found that this 65 number that they've now given to us, I think it was originally 70, is really, really amazing. Um, and you can get up there really fast, especially if you're using the Mind Bender and the two Shadow Word Deaths and stuff. Um, Initially, my initial rotation, if I'm running in on a team, I'll try to put Shadow Word Pain up on two targets. Get my Siphene out there on who's ever potentially gonna charge me. I might hold on to it and start going into vampiric touches and shadow or pains initially. It really depends on how aggressive that team is. Um, and I definitely try to get my mind bender out there. Um, and running in and doing the most DPS isn't the best thing either. And I find that a lot of people are ramping up initially, and sure, it's great to shock a team, and that will win you a lot of games. I'm not saying it's not, but it's also important to protect your healers and to protect your DPS. So I'm always trying to get a mind bomb out there to help a couple people somewhere right away. Um, and then just by using the mind bender and those dots, typically I'll run one mind flay, and then I'm at the 65 insanity that I need, and then it's just time to play ball. Um, and then the constant thing to remember is that you want Shadow Word Paint up on as many targets as possible, um, and you also want to make sure that you have as much Shadow Word Paint before you go and pop your eruption, because that eruption um, can do amazing things for you and your team, especially considering it's situational. You don't know who's getting a heal based on what their actions are doing. So if you're hitting 5 targets, one of them's not getting that heal, and you're going to notice who's not getting it, and you're going to be able to switch over and get onto that. I found that pugging it out, um, you know playing most of your PvP, this is going to be that spec. And like I said, it's, yes, I can see it, momentum. It's so funny, but this is it, guys. And like I said, you're not seeing this on Icy Veins and all that stuff, and I definitely want you guys to remember that, because These sites are getting way too much publicity that they do not deserve. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.